Hello, heathens, and welcome to Spinning the Wheel podcast with me, your organized and responsible host, Megan Angus. And this is 2026 Yule slash Imbolc season, new moon in Capricorn, lunar week 49. All right, let's get into it. You know how we start this off. Thank you so much to all the patrons who follow me. Thank you to all the patrons who are coming back. You're blowing my mind. You're freaking me out. It's weird and I don't know if I like it, but I'm going to say thank you anyways. So we're actually going to start off with a little gratitude this week because it's amazing. It's a new moon, damn it. We're starting off with gratitude, right? But right after that, we're also saying free Palestine, free Congo, free Haiti, free Sudan, free everyone, free Venezuela, free Greenland. No war with anybody, with Nigeria or Iran or anyone else for that matter. What the fuck? Land back now. Arm the dolls. Chinga la migra. And fuck fascism. We're going to say it extra loud this week because we're building worlds this week. And that is going to be in the foundation of everything that we build this year. Okay. My books are currently open for patrons right now. They were totally sold out for January. I opened a couple of more slots for patrons for January. February's books for patrons are also open as of now, and they will be open for everybody else very, very soon, like within the next day or two. So if you've been chomping at the bit to get a reading, your chance is coming. Toot sweet, as the kids say. I don't think any kids say that. Okay. What's coming up on January 20th? That's going to be our next class. We are going to have our new moon tarot circle. We're going to be setting some intentions for this whole coming lunar cycle for the whole month. We're going to utilize some material from the Sabbath workbooks. And we're going to hang out with some archetypes that offer us guidance and inspiration. The January tarot circle, this month's tarot circle, is free for everyone subbed at the Mercury tier and higher on Patreon. Mercury tier, a whopping $5. And as we get closer to that day, I will post a link for that class. The recording and the whatever materials we end up having from the class will also be available for everybody at the Mercury level and up. That is a thing I'm doing for January with these classes because I announced them kind of late and I just wanted everybody to get a chance to see what we were doing in these two classes before we head out into the rest of the year. The next class will be January 29th. That's going to be our first 2026 Wheel of the Year class for Imbolc or Candlemas. This is going to be a live stream on YouTube, free for all beings. Thanks to the extraordinary and, again, unsettling support of my podcast or my patrons. If you would like to support this free work, you can always sub to my Patreon. Thanks. Or throw a tip in my tip jar. Thanks. Okay. Supplies, workbooks, supplementary materials to the live stream available through Patreon for everybody subbed at my Venus level and higher. That is a whopping $9 a month for an unreasonable amount of material and knowledge, damn it. And then our next class will be February the 1st. Yes, on Imbolc, probably, unless I move it. So, you know. And that's going to be our next Hecate's Supper Club. We are going to be going over the lunar cycle basics. Like our last class, we just covered the basics, the very basics of energy working. This class is going to cover the very basics of what is our lunar cycle and how to work with it. We're looking at the basic 8 parts of the monthly lunar cycle as well as parts of the yearly lunar cycle and the witches work that we can do in these rhythms. The last Supper Club was more experiential, right? We talked about stuff, then we practiced, we tried some things, we talked about it, we tried some things, we talked about it, tried some things. This time, this class is going to be more of a lecture, like more of my traditional classes. You sit there. If you have questions, that's fine. You can ask in the chat. We'll go over all that in the class. But this is more of a, I'm giving you info. You're journaling, or ignoring me while you do dishes. I don't know, whatever. You do you. I'm intending to lay the groundwork for you to be able to work with these cycles throughout the next year. That is the point of this. Bring your journal, and we are also going to be starting a year-long lunar project. This class, materials, and recordings, all free for everyone at the Sun tier and higher. So as of February, all of the Hecate's supper clubs are going to be available for folks that are subscribed at the Sun tier and higher, and that is $23 a month. Yeah, that's what's up. Okay. I was like, no, that's it. So those are our next 3 classes that we've got coming up. If you love the podcast, feel free to throw a tip in my tip jar, or you can support the work through Patreon. Oh my God. I think I've said all of that stuff, but I'll say it again. If you love this podcast, follow it here on this platform. You can also, if you're feeling heretical, particularly witchy, you can give it a like. You can leave a comment. We always love that. The algorithms really love the comments. You can also head to my website and sign up for my newsletter. You can follow me on Blue Sky. You can follow me on Instagram. But the easiest way to find out about everything is just follow me on Patreon. You can follow for free on Patreon too, I will add. Okay, I think that's all of that stuff. So let us get into looking at the week of January 18th through the 24th, 2026. As I've been talking about over these last few weeks, we are in the last weeks of Snake Year. Snake Year really has encouraged us to be flexible, to be adaptable, and to be willing to shed skins that no longer make sense for us, and to allow ourselves to shapeshift where necessary and even where wanted. Snake years stir up our intuition and our creativity and really help us deepen our relationship to those parts of ourselves. Can you think of times this last year where also you might have taken a patient or wisdom-based approach to something and that helped? Snake years are all about strategy, they are all about timing, they're all about patience and waiting for the right time to strike. Here's what's going to be interesting is as we move out of Snake Year and into Horse Year, and we will certainly talk about this a heck of a lot more as we get closer, right? We've got one more month to go through, but the energy and the pace of things, generally speaking, are expected to pick up significantly. So in what ways can you really sort of wring out the towel to get those last drips of patience or of calm or of, I guess, sort of the centeredness that strategy requires? Can you curl yourself up in your nest and enjoy those last few days and weeks of being able to curl up in a cozy spot and sort of, restore yourself, getting ready for that next cycle? This is where we're at with Snake Year. We're watching it leave. It's a great time to review the work that you've done during Snake Year and see how you can, finish some things off, come to some conclusions on things, maybe or maybe not, and get ready for a change of pace. Okay, we are still obviously hanging out in winter. Winter from our pagan or witchcraft worldview is about death and rebirth, purification, release, and dreaming. And in my calculations that are oh so mystical, I think of the time when the sun moves into Aquarius as the unofficial, official end of Yule season, preamble, beginning of Imbolc season. And yes, if you're new here, I talk about the Sabbats as big giant seasons. I've always talked about them this way. I started teaching these classes in 2015. And I think of each of these seasons as having one day that sort of, or a series of days that sort of grounds them. Like when we talk about Imbolc, that's February 1st and 2nd. It's 2 days. Yule can be thought of as 3 days. Lunasa technically lasts for weeks, for 2 weeks. So, the Sabbats, yeah, sure, we mark them in the modern era on a specific day, but oftentimes there's more days to that. And then I kind of think of like the whole complex of stuff that's happening around the Sabbat as being part of the Sabbat season. So, in my opinion, we are leaving Yule season and we are entering into Imbolc season. And as we move through Imbolc, we're going to hang out with ideas like purification, which has lots of baggage, perseverance, and renewal. Because those are the big, broad concepts that I think we're working with as we move through Imbolc. In the global arena, when we look at the other holidays and festivals that are happening around the planet, a lot of them, not all, but a lot of them also are celebrating purification and renewal and rededication. This is also something that we absolutely are going to see. And so I say renewal in one place, we might say rededication in another place, but rededication is going to be a thing that we work with throughout Imbolc. And again, looking around the planet, we see that echoed as well in festivals and holy days that are in alignment with this cross-quarter fire festival. To learn even more about Imbolc, you can go to my website. I've got a big giant page up that has some videos, and it's got lots of writing, and it's got other pieces that are adjacent to Imbolc, and there's some tarot work in there, and there's all kinds of fun stuff. Or join my Patreon. Okay. When we start Imbolc season, what kicks it off for me is when the sun moves into Aquarius. And the sun is going to move into Aquarius on January 19th. When the sun heads into Aquarius, our conscious sense of self and our sense of purpose can begin to be more focused on humanitarianism or reform or creating a progressive now. Aquarius is very into this stuff, really into revolutions, really into bringing ingenuity to a situation and what could come next. How can we progress this? When we see other celestial bodies moving through Aquarius, they also tend to take on a more inventive or unorthodox or revolutionary attitude. And we will, of course, be talking quite a bit about Aquarius season, because it's starting right now, and all of the planets as they move through Aquarius. Not all of them are going to move through Aquarius, but a lot of them are. And they're all moving through this week. So we will get to the astrology in a few moments. But first, we have a new Celtic tree month starting this week. Rowan, the Thinker, will run from January 21st to February 17th, approximately. We've talked about the Celtic tree month stuff before, but I will remind you, this is a relatively modern magical idea based in old stuff, and some of that is kind of an amalgamation of old stuff from Western Europe or the British Isles. And some folks work with the Celtic tree months as being locked into these very static dates. These are the dates, period, the end. Other folks will think of the Celtic tree month as being the moon month. So it starts when the new moon happens and it runs through to the next new moon, period. They'll, whatever the dates in the book says, they throw that out. They lock it into the moon cycle instead. And then other folks will really only think of it as the full moon that happens within those stated dates. So you get to kind of play with how you want to work with this body of knowledge, especially because it's modern. Modern and ancient at the same time. Welcome to a lot of paganism. But that to me means that we're part of the conversation. We get to participate in what does that look like? How does it work? What are the different ways that we can, adapt this to what we're doing, right? Season of the snake, year of the snake, adaptation, baby. Let's go. Okay. So let's get into Rowan. What's going on with Rowan? As I said, this is the Thinker. Rowan is thought of as the second moon of the Celtic year. That's interesting in and of itself, right? Here is one set of cycles. We just had winter solstice happen, and so we already are getting information that the Celtic year, the Celtic tree year, is really connected to winter solstice, right? Because we're stepping into the second month as far as they're concerned. But in front of us is Lunar New Year. So there's another New Year's a month out from now. And then there's going to be yet another New Year's at spring equinox. The wheel keeps turning. Rowan stands for the second letter in the Ogham tree alphabet, and it is known by the Celts as Lush. It's spelled Luis. Rowan is associated with astral travel, connection, courage, personal power, and success. Certainly all words that we are working with as we hang out at the end of Capricorn season and the beginning of Aquarius season. In Norse mythology, it was believed that the very first people were made from a rowan tree and an ash tree. Carving a bit of a charm from a little rowan twig will protect the wearer from harm. And carrying rowan twigs can also magically keep you safe. Norse folk use rowan branches as rune staves of protection, and twigs of rowan are tied together in various symbol shapes and hung over babies' cribs, over doorways, and near baby cow stalls to prevent their kidnapping by fairies and occasionally witches. We needed half and half for our coffee, and I'm not going to answer any further questions. Plant a rowan tree by your house to keep folks safe from bad luck and evil spirits. In Scottish folklore, chopping down a rowan tree brings bad luck because they are such strong symbols of protection. The rowan tree is purported to have saved the life of the mighty god Thor, the god of thunder. The story goes that Thor was being pulled towards the underworld in a fast-flowing river. He grabbed a rowan branch and hauled himself back onto the shore. And interestingly, in some countries, rowan is planted in graveyards to prevent the beloved dead from lingering around too long. And if you're pausing and thinking to yourself, like, where did all this graveyard and death stuff come from? Well, my friend, we are going to be dealing with the beloved dead and ancestors and ghosts and spirits quite a bit during Imbolc season. There's a reason why there's a lot of ghost stories and spooky tales that are associated with winter solstice, Christmas season, Yule season, and winter in general. It's still weird out there. We are still surrounded by, those of us in the northern hemisphere, we're still surrounded by a planet that in many ways seems dead or dormant or unavailable for comment. And our sun, even here at the very end of Yule season and the very beginning of Imbolc season, even here our sun is still very low in the sky, and the amount of hours that the sun comes to hang out with us during the day still pretty short, especially for those of us that are closer to the top of the planet. I recently read a statistic that said for folks in Seattle, the difference in the amount of hours of sunlight between winter solstice and summer solstice is about 7 hours. 7 hours! That's literally a day. That's a whole work day. That's amazing, and, really speaks to how dramatically things change from one season to another, especially dependent on where you are on the planet. It's all interconnected. It's all interconnected. Okay, that's our information for Celtic Tree Month. I'm going to give you more as we move through the month, but that's enough to get you started, I should hope. Now, let's get into this moon and the astrology. All right, this week starts with a new moon in Capricorn at 11:51 a.m. Pacific Standard Time later in the day / the next day for everybody else around the planet. This moon is here to help us finish out our work, for now, in the cardinal cross axis in the cardinal cross, and specifically in the Capricorn Cancer axis, which is sort of governed by this idea of I acquire versus I contain. And the cardinal cross, all four signs that are connected to the cardinal cross, are all about instigating, structuring, birthing, starting, establishing stuff, right? So it's helpful in some cycles to have Capricorn here overseeing January and helping us get some things structured, get some things established, get some things started, organized, whatever. But that Capricorn Cancer axis of I acquire versus I contain also includes an inclusion exclusion dynamic. And we talked about that on the Cancer full moon. This thing of like, who's going to be allowed in because we've only got so many supplies for winter, versus Cancer in their season being like, there's plenty for everybody. Everybody get up in mama's lap, Capricorn has to come in, or feels like it's meant to come in, with this very severe, harsh, limiting, restrictive, constrained sort of like, there's only enough to, so much to go around. We can't be sharing this with every damn person. What the hell? And the struggle between those two places, right? It's real. It's real. We live in a world that requires us to use stuff, and our resources are limited, and and also we're in a world where psychologically we're all encouraged to be at each other's throats, so and in competition with each other. So Cancer Capricorn axis really provides a lot of opportunities to work with that super fun material. But we do need to work with this stuff. And also, with this new moon in Capricorn, this moon is ruled by Saturn in Pisces. Technically, this is our last moon ruled by Saturn, with Saturn in Pisces for the next 30 years. The next time that we have a new moon or a full moon that's going to be ruled by Saturn, Saturn will be in Aries. It will have moved into the next sign. Now, I'm saying technically because that's utilizing classic versus modern astrology. You could also say that Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, and plenty of people would say that. And so technically, next month, when we have our new moon in Aquarius, that will be our last moon ruled by Saturn while it is still in Pisces. I hope you're still with me. I hope that wasn't too confusing. But work with that information however you want to. I think that that's an interesting thing because Saturn is such a grumpy, difficult planet to work with. And it's so potent at the same time. And its passageway through Pisces, at least for me, has been very trippy. It's been very difficult. I've had a lot of external difficult things happen. Haven't we all? Right? It's like, not alone in that. I've also had a lot of really weird internal difficult stuff happen. Haven't we all? Not alone in that either. And Pisces is such a feely, intuitive, sensitive, vulnerable planet that simple things can rock you when you're hanging out in that Pisces energy. And so not simple things can really rock you. Yeah. Okay. So this is potentially our last moon with Saturn hanging out in the energies of Pisces. Our next moon, next time we deal with a moon ruled by Saturn, probably going to be in Aries. If not, it's the next one. Okay. The chart of this moon is pretty interesting. This moon sits at 28 degrees of Capricorn, surrounded on all sides by Mercury and Mars at 26 degrees of Capricorn. Venus is on the other side at 1 degree of Aquarius. Pluto is sitting at 3 degrees of Aquarius. So the gang's all here, right? And then if we look around the chart, the moon is sextiled by Saturn at 27 degrees of Pisces. It's trine Uranus retrograde at 27 degrees Aries, and it's sextile Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces. It's only posy vibes right now for this full moon. Everybody's on board. Everybody's excited. Everybody's here to help or be a cheerleader or bring in that hell yeah high five energy. Okay. That's cool. Thank you. The universe has been so mean for so long that really this is lovely. So this is very nice. It's also suspicious. I'm very suspicious of why suddenly everything is fine and working well. So, okay. So let's get into what is going on with this moon. First of all, it's a new moon. If you haven't spun your plants in a while, give them a quarter spin, turn them diasil or clockwise or sunwise. I would go a quarter of a turn if you can. This is going to improve overall healthy growth in every direction rather than just turning them 180 degrees and making the opposite of what they are. But you do you. I don't know when was the last time you turned your plant, so whatever. But here we are at a new moon. And so let's first ground ourselves into our symbolism that we work with for our lunar cycles, which is new moon. That's a seed. It's a start, right? It's a little baby plant. It's a little seed actually in the dirt. Nice, black, rich, moist soil. That's where the seed is hanging out. The new moon work is built out of our conscious identity and purpose, the sun, merging with our feelings and our intuition, the moon. And our goal here, the work that we want to be focused on, is finding a new approach through that combination. That's what we're doing on a new moon. We're bringing in our conscious sense of self. We're bringing in our conscious mind, our logic, our ration, our reason, the facts, the data, the known obvious stuff. And we're bringing it to the same table as our emotions, our feelings, our hints, our intuitions, our guesses, our hunches, the vibes, the memories. And we're bringing them in together to the same place to talk about approaching our subject matter in a new way, giving it a new twist. Hey, I haven't worked on this in a while. Let me come back around to it with fresh eyes. Hey, I've never approached this from this direction before. Let's see what happens. And for some people, we are trying something for the very first time, right? I'm old, I guess. I don't know. But for some of us, it's like, no, I have been working on this for some time now. This is here we go again. But sometimes it is a brand new encounter. Hooray. Here we go. Okay. So Capricorn, as I said 2 weeks ago, oversees wealth and power and the control of those things. But we also talked about why, right? We talked about the fact that Capricorn is like, hey man, I do my job in the middle of some scary times. So yeah, I'm really concerned with resources and who gets to decide what happens to those resources. I want to be involved in that conversation. Thank you. Capricorn organizes and structures, and in some way or another, it also seeks recognition for that work. Capricorn seeks acknowledgement from society, and that can be a trophy, or that might be a high five from a coworker, right? We just want to be seen. That's part of the Capricorn energy, is I am out here working on it, and I do feel like it's important, but I don't mind getting a pat on the back. I don't mind being employee of the week. That's cool too. That's fine. We want to be seen for what we are accomplishing and working on. I think that's healthy. I think it's healthy to not only want to be seen, but to want recognition and praise for what we've accomplished or what we're trying to accomplish, and who we have become. And that also relies on the people around us being observant, paying attention, remembering the past, and being able to compare that to the present. So there's a lot there, right? But again, I don't think that it's inherently a bad thing to want people to know what I'm doing and to say I'm doing a good job at it. That feels good. But this is a weird world to seek praise in. This world, right? Society in general has really weird fucking values. And it has really weird standards for success, right? The more people you kill, the better you are. The more money you have, the better you are. Did you help people? Well, you're a sad sack. You're ridiculous, right? You're a bleeding heart. It's bizarre. It's strange. You, me, we might find ourselves making some fairly capricious decisions. Yes, that is where the word comes from, guys. Capricorn, capricious. Why? We'll get into it in a second. We might find ourselves making some capricious decisions to satisfy our ambitions, claiming a state of emergency to justify some self-seeking shape-shifting. Where am I coming up with that? Well, I'll get into it. Hey man, says Capricorn, it's winter after all. We could die, says Capricorn. I had to hoard the resources, says Capricorn. No one has ever made the Fortune 500 list for being rich in spirit, says Capricorn. Now, what's up with that shape-shifting thing and the capricious thing? Well, when we look back at the root of Capricorn, the symbol of Capricorn, it's a story, a bigger story, but in this moment of the story, Pan, the god Pan, is running away. He's trying to get away from a bad guy, from an evil source, supposedly. And it's Typhon, but whatever. Yes, her. But we'll get into that part later. But he changes shape. He does what he has to do. And he's leaping into a body of water, so part of him changes shape enough to be able to swim away. So he changes his sense of self, and he changes what he is in the world, right? He's lying, or he's using deception, or he's using shape-shifting to be able to produce another reality for himself and swim away. So capriciousness does come out of Capricorn. This idea of, well, I know that I've always been this and I've always held this one form, but hey, it was an emergency, or so I thought. So yeah, I had to shapeshift. I had to be a little deceptive. I had to switch it up for a minute to get myself to safety because I thought that I wasn't safe. And also I didn't necessarily want to use my powers as a god. That part. Okay, anyways. We see you, Pan. We see you, Pan. All right. But this is one way of talking about Capricorn. I want to give you another way of talking about Capricorn. In another version of this world, staying aligned with your values, staying aligned with the stuff that you are passionate about, staying in alignment with the deepest sense of truth becomes much more important than material world achievements. This weekend, I'm getting together with my old role-playing group, the Rolling 20s, for our annual gaming retreat that we have named War on Reality. And this year, we will be fighting especially hard against the current reality. Roll a die with us and make a wish. I joined in 2006 or so, and it's one of the golden threads in my life. We perpetually build community in this group, especially as folks have come and gone through distance or death, and new folks come in and fill those chairs. The current combination in this group features incredible, creative, progressive, intelligent, and caring beings in their 20s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. One of the most important things that we will do this weekend is build worlds. This will be my own magical trip on a Capricorn new moon, to hang with friends old and new, following traditions old and new, tucking in to be cozy while it's frosty outside, to play and plan and dream and declare and structure a whole cosmos into being. But another very important thing that we will do is dare to be a badass and a hero or a show-off and have amazing one-liners or incredible character depictions and win the praise of the folks at the table and the admiration of the DM, to receive praise from our peers and acknowledgement from those in positions of authority, to know you have contributed to something that is bigger than you. The group has a scroll we will hang on the wall with a timeline of the 20 plus years this group has survived, showing the names of all the people and all of the characters that have ever contributed. We stand on the shoulders of giants and trolls and halflings. My point is, we will get up to some capers. We will save the dragon and kill the king. We will pursue the wildest courses of action, come hell or high water. And we will have laughter and snacks, because of course I'm Snackmaster 5000. There will be so many snacks. So this moon, let me pause before I continue. This is my personal interpretation of how this new moon is playing out for me, and how I'm choosing to look through the lens of astrology and metaphysics at my own personal life and the stuff that's happening in it. And I encourage you to do the same. We're building worlds. Make them yours. This moon is surrounded by friends, as I will be this weekend. Mercury, Mars, Venus, and Pluto all snuggled up with the moon and the sun. In the world, unfortunately, this looks ridiculous, and it feels very wound up, and it feels very intense. In the broadest context, this is our feelings and our sense of self or purpose feeling in alignment with the current zeitgeist, which is, of course, very relative to your environment. So this can embolden us if we're surrounded by a bunch of like-minded folks, right? And that could be great or terrible, depending on who we're talking about and what kind of minds we're alike with, right? But further, we're getting support from Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. So it might really feel like we have the approval of the gods. Interesting, the only planet that the moon can't see on the new moon is Jupiter. This potent lineup is going to last for a few days past the new moon, plus the rest of the astrology for the rest of the week is bonkers. So utilize this time to consider the largest form of your blueprint for the coming year. Consider your ethics. Consider the stuff you are willing to fight for. Consider the exchange networks that you want to be connected with. Consider what needs to be channeled, and then consider what kinds of structures could contain that. Consider how your work today honors the work of those who came before you, and how your work today sets up the next crew of adventurers for success. As we move through this week, the coming waxing crescent will call back old escapist comforts, tempting you to just lay back and wistfully remember the good old days. I urge you to roll a perception check. It just might be a trap. For our lunar and plant body work, when we're hanging out with a new moon in Capricorn, we are awakening, activating, adorning, stimulating, and preparing for action our bones, our hair, our nails, and our teeth. So yes, the mani-pedi is a holy act this week. Going and getting the new woo-doo for the scalp is a holy act this week. Making sure we've got our teeth gems all glittery and on lock, holy act this week. As I mentioned before, spin your plants a quarter of a turn if you haven't already. And also for our plant body work, we are maintaining containers, borders, fences, beds, and structures. That might be some of the most important stuff that we can do during a Capricorn moon for our plants, is looking at their containers, their structures, our fences, our borders, our boundaries, all of that stuff. Does it need to be totally torn down and rebuilt? Can that stuff be repurposed into something else? Does it just need to be zhuzhed and, modernized or like brought back into form and focus? You do you. But this is a great time for looking at that and thinking about that. Also, for whatever makes sense for the winter growth cycles for wherever you are, we might also be planting or attending to our roots, our tubers. We can be harvesting seeds and roots for replanting later. This is a great time also for fertilizing if you haven't fertilized in a while. Again, making sense to the stuff that you're growing. And then other things that we will always be doing for this new moon stuff, grafting, layering, and taking cuttings, right? Because that's about getting the starts that we're going to use to start other stuff. Planting our annual crops that bear their fruits or leaves or whatever above ground, especially the leafy crops. Again, making sense for the growth cycles for your area. And then planting cereals, grains, melons, cucumbers, celery, cabbage, spinach, etc., etc. All of that viney and great stuff. All right, so that's our lunar work for this week. Now we're going to get into the astrology and the holy days this week, because I am about to go on a role-play retreat where I'm going to pretend really hard. I'm not going to include as many holy days this week, but also we don't have as many holy days this week. So let's get into it. All right, as I mentioned previously, the astrology for this week is pretty wild. I'm going to go through it first and just talk about it because it is pretty crazy. Obviously, January 18th, we have our new moon at 28 degrees of Capricorn. On this same day, a few hours later, the moon will head into Aquarius. And then, also on this same day, we have Mercury sextile Saturn and trine Uranus. This is Brainification 5000. Mercury sextile Saturn is fantastic for precision thinking. Now, Mercury moves pretty fast, but we can think about these transits as lasting approximately 24 hours. So, whatever-ish, right? But I think that they might kind of resonate a little bit throughout the week because you'll see. There's a lot of stuff going on with Mercury this week. It's like Mercury Fandango. So, wing, wing, wing with Mercury. But Mercury sextile Saturn, fantastic for intricate thinking, precision thinking, like getting down into the really granular details of something. Normally at this time of year, I would be saying paint in broad strokes. When you're thinking about your blueprint for the year, be really loose, be really general with things, just be kind of going on vibes, blah, blah, blah. But we do actually have a lot of astrology that does, not a lot, but we have some astrology this week that actually supports getting into the weeds a little bit, getting into the granular details on things to an extent. So, Mercury sextile Saturn, big time for that. Plus, Mercury trine Uranus. New stuff is cool. The Mercury trine Uranus is like, I want to do new things. I want to learn about new things. I want to talk to new people. I want to say new words. New. Which is a lovely combination because Saturn is bringing in a little bit of the practicality where Uranus just wants something different and wacky. Saturn is like, okay, but different in what way? Granularly speaking, wacky how? Wacky to what extent? And gives it form and structure. This is a great time to want to call in something radically new. And also, we are being faced with radically new challenges. So let's figure it out. Let's get into it. Okay. Then we move to the 19th where we have 7,000 transits. January 19th, we have the Sun sextile Neptune, and then the Sun enters Aquarius. As I said in the past few weeks, everything that's going past that 29 degree mark of Pisces is going to roll over Neptune and then Saturn as they, and then boom, they enter into Aries or they enter into whatever. So every time something is around those degree marks, it's going to be making contact with these planets, but it's also going to be making contact with Uranus and Pluto. I talk about this in the reports that I gave for folks for the year, that anytime something is happening with Pluto or Neptune or Uranus, it's kind of happening with all three of them. So, anyways, we have the Sun sextile Neptune, and then it immediately heads into Aquarius. Also on the same day, we have Venus conjunct Pluto. We have Saturn sextile Uranus retrograde. Same day. Mars trine Uranus retrograde, and then Mars sextiles Saturn. Bruh. Leave some for the next day. What the hell? So the day starts out with the Sun entering Neptune, or Sun sextile Neptune, who's hanging out in Pisces, right? Like the very end, very, very, very end of Pisces, almost just about to go into Aquarius. And it's a super sensitive, squishy moment. Sun sextile Neptune is very feely, very emotional, very squishy, very sensitive. And that can be fantastic because it's a sextile, it's workable. So it's not just like a, oh, I gotta lay on the couch and sort of be taken by the visions and the vapors. This is like, hey, I'm having these really intense daydreams. How can I apply that to something? Hey, I'm able to be more in touch with my own feelings and intuition. I'm more sensitive to other people's feelings and states of being. What can I do with that information? Now, consider the day before that we already have this beautiful setup. We've got our new moon in Capricorn. Let's structure things. Let's establish something. Let's build something. Let's start something. Mercury in sextile Saturn. Let's be really precise in our thinking. Let's get granular on it. Trine Uranus. Let's bring in some new shit. Let's study. Let's learn. And now we have the Sun sextile Neptune, where we're also staying aware of the needs and the states of the people that are around us. We're more aware of maybe the subtleties in our own process. Incredible, incredible timing. And then the Sun enters Aquarius, where it becomes more unorthodox, more open-minded, more ingenious, more revolutionary, more progressive, more humanitarian, right? The Sun is like, yes, let's think about the future. Let's invent some shit. Let's build some things. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Hell yes. And then we have Venus conjunct Pluto. In the midst of all of this stuff, it might feel like a distraction, or it might feel like it's very much in alignment with these bigger ideas of let's start something new and radical and build in the world. Venus conjunct Pluto can bring about really intense emotions. If you're in a relationship that you would describe as like domestic partnership, love, lust, whatever, this might be a day of like really intense passion, really intense vibes. There might just be really intense magnetism between you and your partner or partners. It might just be like, whoa, what is going on? This is a lot. I love it, right? Might also be a day where like some really intense subject matter finally makes its way up to the surface. And so that might also look like, oh wow, we're having this talk, or this person is confessing their feelings to me and I didn't know the depth of what was going on here, or maybe I'm confessing my feelings to somebody else and I didn't know the depth of my own feelings. So work with that as you will. Your mileage may vary. But again, in conjunction of all this other stuff, like, yeah, having an intense, like, passionate love for humanity in planning your projects for the year, I don't think that can hurt. I think that might help. I think it'd be cool if more people had an intense passion for the species and like other species on the planet and just, life in general. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a hippie. Okay, also on this day, we have Saturn sextile Uranus. And this is again one of those things that's just very, very helpful, structured. We don't get Saturn and Uranus hanging out with each other too often because, of course, Saturn moves slower, or Saturn moves slow and Uranus moves even slower. But it's interesting because it is a battle between two archetypes who really represent opposite things. Saturn is like, I want the old guard, I want things to stay traditional, and I don't want to grow. And Uranus is like, I want whatever is new and unknown and coming next, and I'm very excited to grow into that future. But sextiles are workable. And so when we have a sextile with Saturn and Uranus, we might find a balance between the old and new. A balance between like conservatism and the desire to experiment. And there might have been like changes that you made in your life a few years back when Saturn was conjoined to Uranus. And now we've had a few years since that happened. And how are we doing? What's going on? What's working? What should we be carrying forward? What's up? But in general, what this feels like is Saturn, the planet that builds containers and structures to handle our stuff, can actually handle whatever new thing is presenting itself and coming through. And again, what incredible fucking timing for this to be going down. Okay. Also on this same day, we have Mars trine Uranus, right? So Saturn is sextiling Uranus, Mars is trining Uranus. Mars and Uranus also two planets that notoriously do not get along with each other, cause lots of problems, start lots of fires. Mars trine Uranus, let's fucking go. We're trying new shit, we're breaking down barriers, we're making things happen. So as much as Uranus is like, I want to bring in the new world, I want to bring the ingenuity and the progressive and the futuristic and the revolutionary, Mars is like, yes, times 1,000, like, and faster. Let's go. And more passionate and more yelling. So all day, the 19th, it's just one after another, after another, after another. And again, these transits are going to echo for a day or two, especially the Saturn sextile Uranus. That's going to be here for 4 or 5 days. Mars trine Uranus, that's going to be here for a couple of days. Mars sextile Saturn, because these planets move a little bit slower. So these guys are also all overlapping the stuff that's happening on the 18th and overlapping onto the 20th and even the 21st, 22nd, 23rd. So I'm saying, like, pack a lunch, stay for the day. We've got amazing astrology helping us in a variety of ways all day long. And the other cool thing I will say about Mars sextile Saturn. Oh, I don't even think I got into that. So it's Mars trine Uranus, new shit, breaking down barriers, yada yada. Mars sextile Saturn, we now actually have the patience to get into the details. We have the patience to get into the intricate works. Saturn helps subdue Mars's ego a little bit. And that is profoundly helpful when we are trying to invite in new things. We're trying to establish new rhythms or new habits or new practices. And the ego is very caught up in, but I used to do this because I'm this kind of person. Or people know that I'm this kind of person because they always see me connected to XYZ. And when we have these really cool moments like Mars sextile Saturn, and we're going to have another one, Mars sextile Neptune, in a couple of days, the ego is mellowed out a little bit, and it is much more open to the idea of change. It's much more open to the idea of, I don't need to establish my sense of self on a thing. I am. And I can be fluid, and I can change, and I can restructure myself, and that's fine and good. For once, the ego does not feel as threatened by change or adaptation. Very, very helpful, again, in all of this stuff. That brings us to January 20th. See what I mean? Like, this is crazy. This is a lot. This is a lot. January 20th, we see Mercury sextile Neptune. Then Mercury enters Aquarius, and then the moon enters Pisces. So Mercury sextile Neptune, spiking the imagination. Also spiking our perception and our intuition. Our hunches might be going wild on January 20th, 19th, 20th, 21st. We might be getting lots of hints and clues and hunches and feelings and intuitive hits about lots of different things in the world, but of course, obviously, and especially the stuff that we're asking about or focusing on. And we've got a whole week here, right? And then hours later, Mercury enters Aquarius. So now the planet of brainification is going into the sign of ingenuity, invention, rebellion, unconventional everything, progressivism, humanitarianism, etc., etc., etc. And then, a few hours after that, the moon enters Pisces. And the moon, our emotions, our intuitive pieces, heading into that sign of watery fluidness. This is where our waxing crescent is going to be, which we'll get to in just a second. The vulnerability, the sensitivity. We have all been working with Pisces energy so much over the last few years, as we've had Saturn here, so we'd have Neptune here for the last 14 years, blah, blah, blah. We get it. It's soggy, but it does help, it does keep us in touch with our soul and our vulnerability and the sacredness in all of life. Again, we want that in this week of being able to build this masterful blueprint that might help guide us through the rest of this year. I want that sensitivity, right? I don't want the Capricorn energy to just bowl over and be like, shut up, everybody, this is how you do it. Like, we need to stay sensitive. On January 21st, Mercury will be Kazemi. It will conjunct the sun at 1 degree of Aquarius. Mercury conjunct the sun is brainification 5,000, calms 5,000. We're thinking all the thoughts, we're talking all the talks. It can be a day of really intense communication to the point of being like, oh my God, we are talking this to death. Or, oh my God, I just woke up to 73 text messages, which is actually frequent with the witches that are in my text thread. Because what is wrong with you? But, well, it's a Gemini. There's Geminis in my text thread. What are you going to do? But yeah, it might be the 21st might be one of those days where everybody's thinking all the thoughts. We want to talk about everything. We're excited to connect and communicate, exchange the information, exchange the data, exchange the gossip, right? Gossip, extremely holy act as far as I'm concerned. It saves lives. So the 21st might be a day where it's just brainification, calms 5,000. So strap in for that. Then on the 22nd, we have our waxing crescent at 17 degrees of Pisces. And I will talk about that now. I'll talk about that later. I'll talk about it now. The waxing crescent, so let me then scroll through my notes because I wrote it somewhere else. All right, here we go. Nope, that's not it. I am a professional. Everybody stay calm. Here we are. All right, waxing crescent, 17 degrees of Pisces. 7:05 a.m. Pacific Standard Time later in the day, / maybe the next day for everybody else around the planet. What are we doing with the waxing crescent? Okay, we talked about the new moon, a seed, a start, a beginning. At the waxing crescent in our plant metaphor that we work with, we have a sprout. So the seed has popped open and something is struggling to push its way up and out of the seed and up and out and through that soil, right? So it's trying to make its way up to the surface. Can we pull away from the past is our key thought when we're working with the waxing crescent. This is our first phase after the new moon. Generally speaking, a waxing crescent in Pisces is going to bring in kind of trippy states, altered states. There can be a lot of shape shifting here. There can be a lot of half in, half out type stuff. And I'm going to come back to that symbolism in just a second. But the waxing crescent is the first test in our lunar cycle. And it's a little test. It's just a baby test. But the test is, can we grow past our old comforts, our old doubts, our old inhibitions, our old habits? Can we grow up and out of that stuff? In Pisces, that stuff, quote unquote, is our escapist or idyllic or self-martyring habits that want to pull us back down into the deep blue of oblivion and memory and nostalgia and vibes. However, where our new moon could not see Jupiter, this Pisces moon can only see Jupiter. Patrons, go look at the chart wherever I ended up putting it in the notes, because there's a chart for the new moon and there's also a chart for the waxing crescent, and you can see the only planet that the moon can see is Jupiter, which is very interesting. Jupiter being the old planetary ruler of Pisces. Jupiter, our planet of embiggening, right? Our planet of generosity, our planet of abundance, but also our planet of hope and faith and optimism. Key words when we are putting a plan together. There is too much momentum this week to let those tentacles get a hold of us and drag us down into the deep. Give yourself a 15-minute daydream break. Have a snack, hydrate, ask for some blessings, throw a penny in a well, and let's get back to work. That's how we're going to handle that waxing crescent. Okay, let me scooch back up in my notes. Back to where we were talking about astrology. So we're all here on January 22nd. It kicks off with this waxing crescent in the morning. So you might be a little like loopy and daydreamy and sort of like whimsy, lost in the fantasy, trying to get your morning started. And then as the day picks up, it's like, no, there's too much momentum. There's too much energy in this week. We are not letting this, we're not going to slip back. We're grabbing the reins of this horse and fucking going. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Also here on the 22nd, Mercury conjunct Pluto. Boom. That is intense mental energy and a fantastic time for research, a fantastic time for investigations. I can only imagine what information may pop out January 22nd. But I mean, that's an easy bet. That's an easy bet to make these days because wacky shit's coming to the surface in all directions right now. So, but Mercury conjunct Pluto also is really about influencing and being influenced with speech or, to a lesser extent, data or information. So we may hear some really powerful speeches on this day that sway us one way or another, whether we want to be swayed like that or not. Or we might be the ones giving really powerful speeches or finding ourselves capable of using our words to control, manipulate, or influence. And that's, cool or not cool, depending on who's involved and what's going on, right? So your mileage may vary on that week. Be careful. Or on that day, be careful. And also on this day, January 22nd, we have Mars sextiling Neptune. This is a great time for going alone. And so when we look at that combination of the waxing crescent in Pisces and Mercury conjunct Pluto being really fantastic for intense mental work, research, investigation, and then we have Mars sextile Neptune saying maybe it's a great time to just go be by yourself and work on your stuff, that might be what's up for the 22nd, right? Let me go drift and dream and do my thing and then get focused and get into it. But for me, this is, like I said before, Mars sextile Neptune is another time when your ego is sort of subdued a bit. It's mellowed out a bit. And so it's more open to suggestions and change and adaptation. And it doesn't feel as threatened by change or adjustments that might be coming up. Mars sextile Neptune can also help you be more aware of your friends' needs, the states of the people around you, and how everybody is doing. And it can even keep you more open-minded and more oriented towards potential new goals. So many helpers this week, it's ridiculous. That brings us to January 23rd, where Mars enters Aquarius. And so now, by this point, obviously the moon has entered Pisces, but basically in this week, we have the moon, the sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Pluto all in Aquarius. Aquarius, are you cool? Are you good, dude? Are you good, dude? Are you, though? Look at me right now. Aquarius, are you okay? You can handle it. We know Aquarians. They're insane. They're fine. This is nothing for them. This is nothing. It's gonna be a lot, though. Okay, so we have Mars entering Aquarius, and then also this same day, we have the sun conjunct Pluto. We're going to get one of these every year, right? So it's oh my God, that's intense. It is. It is intense. It lasts for a day, and then we're not going to have it for another year, and then we're going to have another one next year. That's what's up. But for the next, 20 years or so, we are going to have a sun conjunct Pluto in Imbolc season. So what do we do when we're hanging out with sun conjunct Pluto? Well, first of all, intensity. Everything feels intense. Everything feels ramped up, pivotal, critical, a lot. So that can be really energizing for some folks. It might be overwhelming for some folks. Take care of yourself. Do what you need to do. But another thing that can come up here. What are some of the words that we work with Pluto? Death and rebirth. Transformation, profound healing. So sun conjunct Pluto offers us an opportunity to fix what's broken. Do with that what you will. But how powerful is it to know that we are going to have a day like this every year for the next, 20 years, more or less, during Imbolc season, this season where we are undoing ourselves and getting ready to bring in whatever the next energy cycle is when spring equinox hits. And we're going to have this moment every year in Imbolc season 2. Fix what's broken. Fix what's broken. Healing. Profoundly important during Imbolc season as well. Really cool. Really, really cool. And then, last thing that happens, the moon enters Aries. So, gets a little spicy, maybe a little tantrum at the end of the week just to round it out, right? Like, everybody's had a great time. We've made plans. We shook hands. We kissed babies. We've built worlds. We've toppled empires. We've saved dragons. We've killed kings. And now at the very end, I'm just going to be fussy. Okay? Listen. Just a little tantrum. Right? So it's not the last day of the week, but we don't have astrology for the 24th. There's nothing happening on the 24th. So the last astrology for the week is January 23rd with the moon entering Aries. And moon in Aries can make us a little short-tempered, can make us a little emo, a little spicy, a little moody. But it's fine. Again, have a snack, hydrate, you're going to be fine. Okay, that's our astrology for the week. See what I mean? That was a lot. Like, what? Why? It's because the gods are all bunched up in the celestial butt crack of the sky. I don't know why they did that, but that's what they're doing. And so they're all gang. That's how they get you, right? They're all ganged up. No, I'm kidding. It just is one of those weeks where we have lots and lots of stuff going on. But you can see how all of these transits throughout the week kind of overlap with each other, or they all sort of speak to each other, or they all kind of echo each other. And so technically, no, some of the transits are only going to last for that portion of the week or that portion of the week, and you're not going to get it for the whole week. Some of the transits, I think, do kind of echo throughout the whole week. I'm deciding to believe, because I'm a wizard and a witch and I get to do that, I'm deciding to believe that because of the nature of these transits and that they all kind of mimic each other, they all sort of are ringing the same bells in slightly different ways, that they all support each other and carry their energy throughout this entire week. I said so. You can disagree with me. I don't care. I'm a witch and I can do what I want. And that's what I want to do. So, but yeah, hello? That was a lot of transits. A lot of really helpful transits, a lot of really good transits. And here is something else that I want to say. When we are pummeled, surprised by a whole big bucket full of seemingly helpful or cool or benevolent transits, there can also be a weird thing where we feel this crazy amount of pressure. We feel a really intense pressure of like, oh no, if I don't make something of this, it's my only chance. Or if I didn't make something from it, I had all that help from the universe. It's me. I'm the fuck up. I'm the screw up. And yes, it was you. You messed up. Okay, no, I'm kidding. Stop. No. I often find that what happens with these really beneficial transits is that the benefit arrives and it takes us a minute to like recognize it, adjust to the fact that it's there, and then figure out a way to utilize it, or am I just meant to enjoy it, right? Just like, yay, it was a nice day. Cool. I had a reprieve from the horrors. And oftentimes the actual benefit of the beneficial transit doesn't show up until later when we're able to integrate it or utilize it, or the effects of it begin to show. So, again, the year-long reports that I was talking about, I've had quite a few people who are having a profound number of really amazing transits this year, and many of them expressed that, like, oh no, in other words, if I don't do it this year, I've screwed up, right? It's not it. I was like, no, absolutely not. Think of this as a whole bunch of like coaches and people backstage hyping you up, giving you the tools you need, helping you learn, making sure that your outfit fits you just right. Like, that's what these guys are doing. And then once the effect of all of that settles in, then you go out and do the damn thing. So take that however you want. But that's how I'm choosing to look at the astrology of this week. This is a really incredible series of transits that are here to help us get our shit together. And, they represent the parts of us that are like, I want to do it. I want to do it, and I want to do it good. And I want it to be stable, and I want it to last. Let's go, motherfuckers. Let's go. All right, holy days for this week. January 18th kicks off with from our modern pagan friends and ancestors, a day for the goddess Danu, who is potentially an Irish slash Welsh goddess. In modern paganism, she's described as a wise great mother goddess who shows us the way. In Celtic mythology, the goddess Danu, also potentially known as Anu or Daanu or Dana, is the ancient mother of all gods and of the Celtic people. She was thought to be both the original goddess and god, an all-encompassing deity who gave birth to everything and everyone. She's often associated with earth, water, winds, fertility, and wisdom. Or so the Victorian folklorists would like us to think, because when we actually do research on this deity, the sole place that we find her name is in the name Tuatha De Danann, which is usually translated to the folk of the goddess Danu. That's it. There is a complete absence from primary texts, but Victorian folklorists attempted to try to build a goddess out of this name and make assumptions. So, it's shaky ground that we're working on here. She is not found in any medieval Irish text. What that description is that I just gave you is a reconstruction by modern scholars based on the genitive case Danan, right? That's what I was saying before, the Tuatha De Danann. That's Danann. And so they're like, well, this phrase is saying the people of this goddess, so this goddess must be a goddess and she must have existed. And then they decided to fill in all the rest of the blanks. What I think is really interesting is that maybe her name is connected to the Vedic water goddess Danu. Maybe. We've seen those things happen before. Because the Vedic name Danu is connected through Proto-Indo-European etymology. And we know that conversation happens all over. It might connect us to the river Danube out of that same etymological root. But also another person suggests that Danu is might connect to the old Irish word dawn, which refers to artistic skill. And at this time of year, we're already hanging out with Bridget, who is a goddess of artistic skill and plenty of other stuff. So sure, maybe Danu is here as well, etc., etc. She's an interesting character to work with, whether you want to go with her reconstruction or you want to get into the history of what we know and don't know about her. And I think she's also an interesting place to think about what it is to be a modern pagan and try to look back through our warped lenses through time, and try to figure some of this stuff out. Also on this day, from our Eastern European, or excuse me, Eastern Orthodox Catholic friends and families, we have the Feast of Felicitas. Felicitas is a incredible healer, so here more healing energy. And then from our Roman friends and ancestors, we have the Dies Natalis of the Temple of Juno Sospita, as well as the Circenses for Hercules. Now, side note that I can't get into right now, but we see a lot of celebrations for Juno and Hercules happening at the same time. For reasons, do your research. But today what we're seeing is the birthday of the temple dedicated to Juno Sospita. Juno is Jupiter's wife, aka Hera, Zeus. And she's in charge of everything. She's in charge of lots of different things. But her Sospita epitaph, Juno, like lots of Roman gods and goddesses, has a million different names. She has her name and then stuff added to it. That's what the Romans did, as a descriptor of her in this very particular form, or her doing this very particular job. And Sospita, we have a sculpture of her depiction as Jupiter Sospita, and she has big goat horns. Interesting. We're just leaving Capricorn and heading into Aquarius season, and Aquarius is connected to the Roman month of Februus, where we get the word February. And during February, we have a little old holiday known as Lupercalia, where goats and purification play a really, really, really big role, as well as fertility and pregnancy and all of that other good stuff. So, very interesting connections here with her. All right, moving to January 19th. From our Buddhist friends and ancestors, we have a day of offering, which is very similar to like a Thanksgiving kind of vibe. Also on this day in the United States, we have a day dedicated to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was an American Baptist minister and activist who became the most visible spokesperson and leader in American civil rights movement from 1955 until they murdered him in 1968. Why? Because he was too good at it. He was getting people to rally against the Vietnam War. He was getting whites and blacks to work together and settle their class differences and understand that they were all on the same team. He was doing a really good job at breaking down racism and breaking down class barriers, and they can't have that, so they got him out of here as quick as possible. Also on this day, from our Coptic Christian and Eastern Orthodox Christian and Catholic friends and family and ancestors, we have Timcat, which is exactly the same as Epiphany. And we talked about Epiphany in the last couple of weeks. And that's that thing of like the Eastern Orthodox Church / the Coptic Christians are about 13 or 14 days different from regular, what we would think of as regular Catholic, or our calendar that we're using. January 20th, no holy days. And I think that at least part of why, like, this week being kind of bereft of holy days in a sense is because we just kicked off a bunch of multi-day festivals in the last couple of weeks that are still running through here. And a lot of those festivals, whether they were a single day or a multi-day, are dedicated to plowing and going out back into the world, if it's possible to do so, and start preparing the soil. So people are already getting back to work when it comes to that stuff. That's part of why, tangent, it's been a while since we had one, tangent. That's part of why the rest and stillness and lack of action is so important at Yule. Sit the fuck down. Tell a ghost story. Eat a nut. Drink some nog, my dude. Take a load off. It's frozen, it's cold, you're going to fall down and hurt yourself, first of all, okay? But secondly, we are going to get back to work in just a minute. It's like literally way faster than you think it's going to be. So in these moments when nature is like, dude, stay inside, sit down, just sleep for 12 hours. Why are you trying to do things? Stop doing things. I know, we also live in the modern world, and that's not how time works. For now. All right. Okay, January 21st, we have a few heliacal risings, nothing too exciting. We see the heliacal risings of the fixed stars, Tarazed, Sham, and Albireo. These are found in the eagle / Sagitta, or the arrow that is flying through the sky, and also Cygnus, or the swan. And nothing super magical about these. I think that these are more just like timekeeper, placeholder type fixed stars. But I could be wrong because my research into fixed stars is relatively shallow compared to some of the other subjects that I talk about here. There might be some spicy stuff going on with these stars and I just haven't figured it out yet. So, do your own research. Find out. And let me know. Okay. January 21st is also the day that our Celtic Tree Month kicks in. That's Rowan the Thinker. Aquarius, air signs, here we go. And also on this day, we have Mercury conjunct the Sun, I know I haven't been actually talking about the astrology. I hope you wrote it down before. Also on this day, from our Icelandic friends and ancestors, we have Bondadagur, Thori. This is historically a men's day, very much in the similar spirit of like having a women's day or whatever, but it actually means Farmer's Day. This is a traditional celebration in Iceland occurring in late January. It's a midwinter festival, but it's absolutely about preparing the land, getting back out there and doing things. Um, it also now in the modern era kind of has like a Valentine's Day sort of vibe to it. But Tori is the personification of winter or frost in Norse mythology. And so his name is generally believed to have been derived from Thor. And yeah, so there's like maybe a day of that or maybe a week of it, depending on what era we're talking about, what region of Iceland is doing that. But yeah, it's about the frost that's on the ground and the snowy and the ice, and the farmer being like, what am I doing with this? What are we doing about this? From our Catholic friends and ancestors, we have Our Lady of Altagracia, which means high grace. This is the patron saint and protector of the Dominican Republic. Our Lady of Altagracia is a portrait of the Virgin Mary in a nativity scene painted around 1500. And we do see that around the world, that a lot of these dates that are set aside for celebration, whether it's a single day or a festival, that are in reverence to the Virgin Mary are often literally in reverence to a statue or a painting. And that thing is like the physical world placeholder for that deity. And so the thing itself, the icon itself, the painting itself, the sculpture itself is honored and revered and like spruced up oftentimes. Okay, January 22nd, that's our waxing crescent in Pisces. So again, can we pull away from the past? Can we pull away from our victimized, idyllic, escapist, too vulnerable, too sensitive elements that want to hold us in the past and want to keep us in our old habits and our old feelings and our old comfort zones? Can we pull away from that stuff and start building the new world? No pressure, just that, okay? Lock in. For our lunar body work, when we are hanging out with the waxing crescent in Pisces, I did put this in, use it or don't. We are awakening, activating, adorning, and stimulating, preparing for action. The legs, especially the ankles and the feet. That's feet, especially for Pisces. So again, the mani-pedi this week, holy act. And for our plant body work with a waxing crescent in Pisces, if you didn't spin your plants, spin them. But if you did, leave them alone. And this is the same. Planting roots, except potatoes. We've had this discussion before. The potatoes of rebellion have returned. Do you hear me right now? Listen to me as hard as you fucking can, okay? The potatoes of rebellion have returned. If you know, you know. So plant your damn potatoes on a Pisces moon if you dare. If you dare, or don't. You have free will, and I support that for you. Watering and irrigating under our water signs always makes sense. So that might be watering your plants, but that also might be checking the water systems for your plants. Are they draining appropriately? Blah, blah, blah. Transplanting, grafting, for annual flowers and fruit and veggies that are going to bear fruit above ground. Messing with your corn, your tomatoes, your watermelon, zucchini. And again, because we're in a new moon, doing grafting or layering or taking cuttings, awesome. Planting annual crops that bear their fruits and leaves, etc. above ground, awesome. Especially the leafy crops, awesome. And obviously, whatever makes sense for the growth cycles in your environment. Okay. Also on this day, we have the heliacal rising of the fixed star Altair, or Altair. This star is found in Aquila, or the eagle, the bird, the powerful bird. And so let me go into, before I get into all that, let me get into this. This star has a ton of different names. And the star name is directly connected to the constellation name. So having a list of star names gives us a little clue of like all of the different names that this constellation has gone by. So, the eagle, the bird, powerful bird, the bird of Jove, the noble falcon, the flying eagle, the flying vulture, the eagle star, the wounding, the three footsteps, or river drum. All of these psych me out and freak me out in really cool, amazing ways. I love them because they connect to so many different things that we're talking about here in winter, Yule season, Imbolc season, and even beyond that. But here again, we have a reference to the flying vulture, which we've seen references to the vulture in the past few weeks with other fixed stars, and that is going to be connecting us to all of our goddesses that are represented by vultures. Yes. This star is found at the junction of the neck and the right wing of the eagle. The traditional name of Altair is connected to the name of the constellation, as I said before, but it is an abbreviation of the Arabic phrase Anasrota'iro, which means the flying eagle. It was known to the Euphrates people, Persians, Iranians, Zoroastrians. This star is thought of as an extremely potent remedy or helper in fighting evil and guarding goodness. So if that was something that you were thinking about including in your blueprint for this year for, I don't know, reasons, you might want to hang out with Altair, Anasrota'iro. Excellent. All right. Also on this day, we've got our astrology, and then we also have the dies natalis of the Temple of Concordia from our Roman friends and ancestors. Concordia being an interesting deity that ultimately winds up being kind of a nanny goddess that is very concerned with keeping the peace. So watch out for that on January 22nd. Also, January 22nd, maybe this has something to do with it, probably just a coincidence. Roe versus Wade, 1973, the United States. Anyways, January 23rd, we have the heliacal rising of the fixed star Alshane, which is also found in the Eagle constellation. This is in the bird's neck. Again, nothing super spicy about that particular star, but that brings us to the end of the week, which is January 24th, where we find the heliacal risings of, or the rising of, risings. I know what I'm doing. Everybody just be quiet. Heliacal risings of Gaida, Prima and Secunda. So these are two stars that we find in Capricorn. I think these are our first Capricorn stars. I'm probably wrong about that. We probably have already hit a few. Whatever. Capricorn. These stars are also called the goat, the forehead, the horn of the goat, or the slain kid. This is actually two stars located in the right horn of the sea goat. The traditional names are Al-Gaida or Al-Jedi, Jaidi, coming from the Arabic word Al-Jadi, which means the billy goat or the kid. And then on this same day, we have the heliacal rising of the fixed star Dabih, also found in Capricorn, and this is the lucky one of the slaughterers. This is in the head of Capricorn, in the left eye. The traditional name comes from the Arabic term al-Dabi, which means the butcher. Especially helpful for folks escaping captivity. All right. What is interesting is we have, through this run of the stars, through this run of the sky, we get some last week, some this week, and some next week, these various stars that are connected to Capricorn that all represent billy goats. Okay, so goat energy, again, here we go, right? But and also, one of them is connected to a goat that is sacrificed. One of them is connected to the butcher that does the sacrificing, but one of them might be connected to a goat that gets away. It's also interesting that around this time of year, we also have a Roman dedication to the temple of Castor and Pollux, the Gemini twins, one mortal, one immortal, one lives, one dies. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. These fixed stars, these heliacal risings of these stars that we're connecting to Capricorn and goats, connect back to an Arabic festival that was happening where there was a goat sacrifice, and there was, something doing with goat herders and, abundance and fertility and all of that good stuff. So something there. I have, again, my research on the fixed stars is shallow compared to a lot of the other stuff. So you go do research on that. Do tell me what that's about. What's there? What's going on there? Okay. Also on this day, running from January 24th to February 24th, from our Andean friends and ancestors, we have the festival of Ekeko, the Alacitas festival, also known as the Alacitas Fair or Feria de Alacitas, is an annual event held in the Bolivian city of La Paz. It kicks off on January 24th, featuring a month-long festival honoring the god Ekeko, the Tiwanakan god of prosperity and abundance. So folks will travel from all over the country and really all over the world to head to La Paz and purchase these little tiny figurines that either depict a literal symbol of abundance, or they are a tiny little figurine of Ekeko themselves loaded down with tons of presents. And then they give out these little figurines to friends as gifts all year long. The idea being sympathetic magic, that at some point in the year, the recipient will receive all of the treasures featured in that little figurine. Pretty damn cool. Running from January 24th to February 1st, from more of our South American friends and ancestors, we have the Fiesta de la Candelaria, and this is a celebration of Candelaria, the belief system, but it's also leading us into Candle Mass, which is another name for Imbolc. So yep, we are officially going to start to get into the days where the Imbolc celebrations, the Candle Mass celebrations, or whatever they're called in those regions, are going to really start to kick off in earnest here in just a second. From our Catholic friends and ancestors, we have the Feast of Our Lady of Peace. This feast commemorates the Blessed Virgin Mary, who is often represented holding a dove and an olive branch that are the symbols of peace. Hopefully she can get here soon. That would be super cool. And last but not least, from our Eastern European friends and ancestors, we have the Blessing of the Happy Woman's Candle. And this is absolutely hearkening toward our Imbolc stuff. Candles, candle mass, right? That's another name for Imbolc. Candles and light are a really big deal at Imbolc. So we will get into that a little bit more as we go forward. Okay, last but not least, here are some tools for you all to work with that are a little bit more intuitive and subjective to your own personal witchy trip that you might be on. We are working again with, this week we step into the new Celtic tree month. So hanging out with Rowan. When we're working with our plant friends, I highly recommend simply going out into nature and looking at the plant in situ, if it is at all possible for you, if it grows where you live, blah, blah, blah. I know that's not true for all things across the board. Not true for all people across the board either. Also, getting out into nature for some folks is a real conversation because of mobility. I get it. If you can, get out into nature. Smell the air. Well, I'm going to tell you that anyways, right? But get out into nature, smell the air, walk on the ground, listen, look around. Don't just look at the tree. Let's say you find a rowan tree in the wild. Don't just look at the tree. Look at where it's growing. Look at the distance that it has between it and other trees. Look at how its canopy interacts with the canopies of other trees. Look at how the animals and birds and insects interact with the tree. Think about that stuff. Have your thoughts. Ponder the orb. You know what I'm saying? Come on, witches. We know how to do this. Look at the shapes that the branches make. Look at the shapes that the twigs make. Ponder that. If you are harvesting things, I'm always going to be the one telling you, leave things better than you found it. Pick up trash. Pick up anything that doesn't belong there. Well, let me say that with an asterisk. Pick up trash and things that don't belong there in that sense, if it's safe for you to do so. If it looks sketchy, obviously don't hurt yourself. But if something looks like it's an offering, don't disturb it, right? But also, goddess, my witches, don't leave non-biodegradable offerings out in the wilderness. And really, 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 we shouldn't be leaving much of anything as offerings out in the wilderness. We can leave our songs, we can leave our prayers, we can sweat, we can leave our tears, we can leave our orgasms, right? We can leave a chanting. We can burn some incense, right? And leave that smoke drifting in the air for a little while. But we are living in a time where our ecology, our planet, is really, really going through it because of humans. We, even with our best intentions, do not need to go out into these systems and stress them any further or unbalance them any further. I am excited for the day that we can go back out of the woods and leave amazing offerings for whomstever, right? But it's not, no bueno. It's not good right now. So, be smart with how you do that stuff. And if you are harvesting things, especially during winter time, if you're harvesting things, I want you to do a 1 to 4, a 1 to 5, a 1 to 10 kind of a count. For every 10 that you see, harvest 1, or for every 5 that you see, harvest 1. If it's something that is an invasive species, you can pretty much go to town on it. But if it's not an invasive species, it's probably struggling. So, harvest the hell out of the invasive stuff and be very, very judicious in your harvesting of things that are native, especially if they're having a hard time. Do a little research before you go out into the woods. This is a great week for it. We've got lots of astrology saying do research, damn it. Okay, so there's my little lecture on being good witches and harvesting good things. Our runic half month that we are working with from January 13th through the 27th is Porto or Piort, which is the womb, the dice cup, chance, fate. And in tarot, we have now entered Aquarius. So we are hanging out in fixed air energy. Aquarius connects us with the star card. So, working directly with the star card is very potent for the next month. That's going to be really conceptual and esoteric and philosophical. If you want something that's a little more grounded, work with the Knight or the Queen of Swords. Both of those cards also carry a lot of Aquarius energy. We still have Saturn in Pisces, so we're still working with the Eight of Cups. We had Mars in Capricorn, so for the portion of the week that is happening, hang out with the Three of Pentacles. Once Venus moves into Aquarius, we can work with the Five of Swords, and once Mercury moves into Aquarius, we can work with the Six of Swords. That's a lot of swords, guys. Knight or Queen of Swords, Five of Swords, Six of Swords. Here we go. Here we go. And we are not going to be doing it with all things. We're not going to be doing it with... We don't have tarot cards that connect to every planet in every sign. So that's who we've got. That, my friends, is it. Thank you for riding with me through this entire thing. I know it went a little fast and a little crazy because, I gotta go roll dice, guys. I gotta get out of here. So be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Stay safe. Stay happy. You can always stay connected by following this podcast wherever you listen. And while you're here, please leave a like and a comment. You can also join my newsletter through my website. You can follow me on Blue Sky or on Instagram. And technically, I am on Facebook too, but I am kind of a ghost over there. But the easiest way to stay connected with me, stay connected to this podcast, stay connected to all of my work is join my Patreon. Folks get all kinds of support. They get exclusive classes, lots of free shit, discounts, and the warm, cozy feeling of assisting a deviant weirdo like myself, and making all of the free stuff stay free. The reason this podcast has no ads, except this one right now that I'm saying, is because I don't monetize it, because my patrons help me. The reason that all of the videos are up on YouTube and they are free and they are not monetized is because my patrons help me. You want to get involved in that? Sign up. Let's do this shit. Exclusive classes, free stuff, discount codes. It's ridiculous. Join now and change your life forever. Probably. No guarantees. All right. Okay, my witches, that is our week of work. Hopefully I will see you on Tuesday for our new moon tarot class. Definitely looking forward to that. If not, like I said, the recording and the materials will be up for everybody at the Mercury level and higher. That's a whopping $5. Our next class after that is Imbolc on YouTube, live stream free. And then our next class after that is going to be our next Hecate's Supper Club, working with lunar cycles and sort of getting grounded into the types of cycles we're going to be working with this year, getting a year-long project started. And that is available for everybody subscribed at the sun level and higher. I hope to see you there. And that, my lovely witches, is your podcast for the week. Blessed be. Go build some fucking worlds, eh? Roll